Hola, hola. Buenos dias, G&Gs. My name is Trekk with 2Ks, and this is another Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel. If you don't know, you're about to know. The basic idea is I cover crypto-related news stories that happen from Friday evening to Sunday. And there definitely been a couple of things that have gone on this weekend, and I would argue the overarching theme of this all is proof of keys. Not your keys, not your cheese. And so we're going to get into these stories. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you for the folks who are tuning in and checking out, what we're saying here on the Gentleman of Crypto, as well as checking in on the Weekend Crypto segment itself. And thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the people who are coming back. Also, just to say, I appreciate the lurkers. I appreciate the people who leave no thumbs up, no comment, even a thumbs down. I'm okay with the thumbs down people too. Why? Because it just gets me to improve what I'm doing, gets me to improve how I'm delivering this content to y'all. And it also motivates me to keep delivering the content to y'all, even when the market is looking crazy out here, because I know that somebody is actually taking the time to listen to these episodes. So let's jump into this first story right here. Yeah, like I said, this is a whole not your keys, not your cheese kind of weekend, okay? Crypto winter causes Australian exchange to freeze operations permanently. The basic idea is challenging market conditions during the crypto winter forced Australian-based btc.com.au to close its doors for the last time. Now, not really a long article, and the basic thing that they're saying was that it was a knock-on effect of what's been going on with the liquidity providers and the liquidity pools and stuff like that behind the scenes that eventually caught up to how they were running their business model for their exchange. And so they weren't a major exchange, but they were notable for the Australian market. And basically the knock-on effect came to them and they had the vulnerabilities. And so now they have to close. So what does it say? We launched with a vision that cryptocurrency should be easy to access and available to everyone. Today, our platform has evolved into a full-featured trading platform used by thousands of everyday Australians just like you. Here's the thing that gets me about this statement. This dude was gaslighting and selling a narrative of inclusion. Let me get close. That person was gaslighting for selling the narrative of inclusion, because once you got into where you're KYCing, if you don't have an official address, if you don't want to put up that kind of information, guess what? You don't have access. It's not inclusive because you're putting up barriers. Now, granted, it's how they had to operate within the Australian jurisdiction, but it goes against what you're out here trying to sell as a narrative. So let me jump back. In reading a number of these stories, I'm wondering something of, is there a coordination going on to mess with the markets now? I'm wondering that. Not saying I got evidence or proof. I'm just looking at the stories and how things are timing out right now. Other thing to say, for those of you, if somebody who's listening to this and you are in the Australian market or you somehow have access to it and you're not in Australia, you have until July the 22nd to get your stuff off of the platform pretty much, because they are going to end up closing out everything. And what I want to say, as far as my thought before, was I feel like what we're seeing here in the crypto space is basically the same behavior and patterns of traditional finance, where there's a lot of commingling going on the back end in regards to whose pot of money is connected to whose other pot of money and business function and role. And that's what we're seeing happening in the crypto space. For whatever the agenda or reason is behind doing it, I get it that it made people money. I get it that it helped get some projects to a certain level, but just looking at how it's playing out now on the front end, it looks crazy. Moving on to the next story. All right, so this is next one. Regulators need to determine whether miners' extractable value is illegal. The BIS report says. If you don't know what BIS is, the Bank of International Settlements. There we go. And so basically they put out a report, a research paper that suggests that the process of miners making profit by choosing the sequencing of transactions in a blockchain could be considered illegal. Now, it's only illegal if you then turn around and be like, no, we're going to make that activity illegal. But what they did in this report was say, this is like wash trading or sandwich trading, where wash trading is like you back and forth on your own thing, your own asset on a trading platform, and it's illegal in traditional finance, right? Now, they make the comparison, it's not even a comparison. And let me read through some of these highlights for y'all so y'all can get how the BIS is framing it, but I still have questions from what I understand about mining. A new research paper published by the Bank of International Settlements has equated miners' extractable value, MEV, to illegal activities in traditional markets like front running and sandwich trading. Sorry, I said wash trading, but it was actually front running. Sorry, y'all heard what they said. MEV refers to profits that miners can earn by choosing transactions to include a block to include in a block and in which order the report deems MEVs to be. So highlight of profits that are made by manipulating market prices via specific ordering or trade censoring of pending transactions. Now, here's the thing that I find funny about this, right? One, they're not clarifying which type of mining they're talking about. Are we talking about proof of work or proof of stake? Are we talking about delegated proof of stake? Like, what consensus thing are we talking about right now as far as how the mining works? They don't distinguish that. And it just might be that the author didn't distinguish that. I'm not 100% certain if they're talking about proof of, but they do make a reference to Ethereum as it is now, not as it is moving towards proof of stake. But they don't mention Bitcoin in this whole article. And I don't know if they mention Bitcoin in the actual original report. The other thing to note is, I don't know if they're talking about a recent report they did, or is it the report that they pushed out last year? I think it was like either November or September. I don't remember the month. I know that the OFAC report and the World Economic Forum's report came out in October, but I don't remember this one in regards to the BIS specifically. But nonetheless, they're still trying to make that equation come together, right? Of, hey, this thing that we know is illegal in traditional finance. The irony of this is what they're talking about as far as front running, this is the same shit that Robinhood works on. So it's mind blowing to me that you're going to say that it's illegal over here on the crypto side, or it should be argued that way, but you're not saying that it's illegal over in how Robinhood does it. I'm just saying, this is where you got to take these things with a grain of salt, and you got to see them from, okay, I get what y'all doing. Y'all trying to find ways to argue to bring the regulation in. Now, moving on to this next highlight. In the traditional finance market, transactions are sequenced in order that they are received, the report said. However, in the case of blockchain, miners determine which transactions to add to a block, which, see, and this is the part of where I'm like, all right, we're talking about proof of work, where you can determine whoever paid the most when you do a slow transaction, a priority transaction, and then like an urgent transaction, and then you pay more. But then they do get into that here, but they're still saying that, hey, even if you're taking aside only the people who took the high emergency transaction, they can still stack what order it goes in. But arguably, in regards to that, every other miner and the nodes in proof of work can look at the transactions and see the order too. So I'm still trying to figure out how they're arguing the game. It's not like you do this in a black box. You can watch this live happening if you have the right tools to look at the transactions as they're being put together by the miners and as things are being added into the blockchain, or sorry, the specific blockchains that you're looking at. Nonetheless, y'all get the point of what I'm saying, that they're inferencing that this could be an illegal activity in regards to how they're describing it, okay? This is another statement that I was like, wait, how do we even verify this? Like, how do we come to this conclusion? This line goes, in fact, at times, 1 out of 30 transactions added to with the motive of earning MEV, the report states. And so one of the things that they made as a point was that a miner could add in their own transaction, front running a high value transaction as far as putting their thing in first, and then taking in the high value transaction and putting that into the block, which would then earn them some MEV. And I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't we all see that on the chain? If you see that the miner, and again, the way that the majority of the mining is set up now, it's pools. So it's not like it's one individual miner doing it themselves. So you're saying then that like Antminer and the other ones, and they're doing this now? And like, why aren't we specifically giving names if that's like happening? Again, I'm looking at this going, I'm not 100% sold on how y'all are arguing this. And I think this is one of those, like, you're trying to turn it around to make it seem like it fits, like the square fits into the circle kind of deal. Sorry, I ran long on that one. But for those of you who are in the mining community, please, like, definitely check out that article. Give me some comment, give me some feedback, give me some insight. I would definitely appreciate some better understanding of that scenario as they are explaining it. You saw what side it was on. You can definitely deep dive on that on your own. So while I was setting up for the articles, I seen this joint pop up on Twitter. So I figured, you know, let me just throw this in. This gets into the whole thing of governance. And again, like I said, this whole overarching thing of proof of keys. Not your keys, not your cheese. Sol, which is Solidity, oh, sorry, Solana, there we go. Solana, basically a whale deposited, as you see here, 5.7 million Sol, which was out to 150 million. They borrowed it out of 108 million in USDC and USDT. Then all of a sudden, the Solon decides to do an emergency vote to be able to liquidate the position on the person. Like, this is the questionable stuff that's going on in the space right now. I'm just like, what are we doing? Does this count? Here's what I thought about when I read this whole thing. And you see what you call it is, this is on Twitter. It was a post. I had the link for it. If you're interested, I could definitely share it with you. Just find me on Twitter and I'll share it with you. Or you can just search through yourself, because this happened this morning. That came out. So Sunday morning, you're seeing this Monday now. By the way, happy belated Father's Day to all the pops out there doing what they got to do to help be in the lives of their kids in a positive way, not the destructive folks. Nonetheless, pushing on. So my thing on this was, does this count as community policing? Is this the community voting to take action on someone gaming the system? Or is this the platform looking to prevent someone from doing something that the platform is able to function as? Does that make sense to y'all? And so I don't know the right answer on this, but I know that this happened over today, being Sunday, and I don't know which way it turned out, but you know, this amount of people quoted it, voted it, this amount of comments happened. Some folks are questioning what's going on, as you see right here. Is this community policing? I'm not 100% on calling it that, just because of how they spun it up. All right, y'all can dig in another on your own time. Highly do encourage you to do your own diligence and research on these stories that I push out. If you ever notice, especially when you're looking at CoinDesk and like Cointelegraph, they'll have this thing of the hour and time that they publish that article, and X amount of times you'll see a new update time on it. So something that I'm reading now on Sunday, it don't mean it didn't change by Monday morning, or if I picked it up on Friday, it don't mean it didn't change by Saturday midnight. I don't know everything. I can't keep track of all of it, but nonetheless, here's this next story. Babel Finance. And so if you don't know who Babel Finance is, it's okay, because unless you're really on the back end side of these exchanges and understand X amount of like how the trading and the liquidity pool stuff works on the back end, you would have never known who Babel Finance was. And so here it goes. The crypto finance provider is pausing withdrawals and redemptions in response to the harsh market conditions. The funny thing is, this actually came up on a non-crypto channel that brought this to my attention last night, like around 1 in the morning or something like that. And so the basic idea here is that these exchanges and these different lending platforms, they're getting money, or they're having their floating ability backed by actual like financial pools that are coming from other sources. Babel is one of those companies. To just highlight real quick, several crypto companies face liquidation risk, cutting their workforce and pausing user activities. When I was reading this, I thought about it because there was another article that comes up with the same talking point. And I'm wondering if certain platforms saw certain things happening within their within their financing backend, the liquidity pools, whatever, and was like, hey, there might be a ripple. We might need to start downsizing the company in order to be able to deal with when this plays out in front of everybody. Because if you look at how these stories are coming out right now, it isn't like everyone's telling the up and up on what's been going on. Some people are straight doxing folks out here. And then some people are just giving the PR spin of the market is tense right now. Things are down, but we're going to position ourselves in a very good calculated position and be able to move forward. By they're not saying what the up and up is on how things are really chaotic on the back end. And then the other part of who noticed it first, who started making business readjustments in partnerships, in connections, in how much they were moving in and out of other platforms, or what they were still staying committed to, or who started inquiring about, hey, are you guys still good with us being able to move this way, or do we have to pull back, or who started pulling back? I think some people noticed this probably back in May. I think I don't have no proof on it. Now, the other thing to note, this dude right here, Fat Man Terror, he also weighed in on this as far as Babel is currently facing a nine-figure losses. This is also the dude who was doing a whole bunch of commentary on Terra Luna and claiming, hey, this thing isn't going to work out the way y'all folks think. This isn't going to work out the way Do Kwon is marketing it as. And so here we are now. Hindsight is 2020, as they say. The basic idea, though, of what's going on is the crypto space, specifically crypto companies, have been doing the same thing that was going on in traditional finance companies, where they were intermingling funds and supporting each other's pools of funds, liquidity pools and things like that on the back end. And then you also got to look at who's been investing in what and how the layering works. And so now, if one person is messed up and they're connected to X amount of the different other companies and entities, or at different parts of the infrastructure in this whole thing, on the finance side, even on the tech side, guess what? It's a ripple effect all the way out. And then the other part, I think with Babel, what got it is they're not even, I don't think they're specifically a crypto related company. They do financing for other things. So if something is going on in the bigger economy, it's going to eventually come into the crypto space thing, as well as things going into the crypto space are going to go out into the bigger economy, because we're crossing those things on the back end. And arguably, this is part of the growing pains to see how do you use this technology in the most efficient, effective way in creating new financial instruments that have a better stability and function to them. This is what you got to go through. All right, now getting over to this story, when I seen this, I was like, okay, so BlockFi starts liquidating. All right, cool. Now, the way this story is written, though, is going on that BlockFi liquidated a major platform, and they sideways. Let me jump into this right here. All right, highlight. Prince, who is the CEO and founder behind BlockFi, disclosure claims that after Singapore-based crypto hedge fund Three Arrows Capital failed to meet margin calls from its lender following this week's crash. According to a Financial Times report, BlockFi was among its lenders. So BlockFi gives money to 3A Capital, then takes that money, and then they start putting it into other platforms and other projects. And this is what I'm talking about, of that whole intermingling the funds together. Now you get into this thing of like, all right, if that person over there messes up and they were high enough up in the financial food chain, that means they were sprinkling and making it rain for a number of platforms. So if they get messed up, guess what? Everything that they put in on gets messed up, which then ripples down to everything that in that second layer that they were connected to. And this goes into this whole thing of at the retail level, not your keys, not your cheese. X amount of what's being talked about is at the business, enterprise, institutional level, as far as like the major, bigger exchanges and companies and like the financing firms on the back end. We're not necessarily talking about retail level as far as 3AC, doing retail business. They're doing B2B level stuff, but the business they're dealing with deals with us, the retail level folks. So that's how this affects us. That's the issue. I don't even know what else to say on this other than, yeah, they're mixing and matching the money on the back end, and this is what it's coming to. And This is the other reason why, before I run into this next story, why I think there's some kind of coordinated thing going on to mess with this industry. I don't know what agenda is. I think part of it has to do with bringing in regulation. I can't say that for a fact, but that's what I think would be the most sensible thing. Make enough chaos, get enough negativity to happen in the economic environment as it relates to the institutional level, the retail level. X amount of people complain. Who wants lawsuits and stuff? Hey, here comes the regulators. We're going to start blanking it out, all types of regulations. That's at least how I'm seeing it. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some guy on the internet. I'm not a dev. I'm not an economist, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't give financial advice, right? Just some guy on the internet. Jumping into this story, second to last story as it is. So, third non-EU country, Ukraine, joins the European Blockchain Partnership. So technically, this title is misleading because where they're at, they're just an observer. So they're not actually in. They're not like, all right, we're going to start doing digital business, digital asset partnership businesses with you, and we're going to let you like start moving digital assets and stuff around. So technically, that article title is misleading, but you don't know that until you actually read further into the article where they say they're just an observer. The intention of what they want to do is to move in like a full party member. And there's 27 other state members of this. Sorry, I'm kind of running through the highlight right now fast. But the basic idea is like, hey, we want to get into cross-border services using, and they word it here as, jumping into this next line, here you go. They just say based on blockchain technology. They don't say what type of blockchain they want to use. Is it going to be proof of work, proof of stake, delegated? They don't say none of that type of stuff. And it just might be how the article is written. I don't know. I haven't followed up on what their innovation prime minister dude is actually like looking to do. But the point being is that Ukraine is definitely looking to get their foot into what is going on in the EU setup of how they want to implement a blockchain technology. We don't know what blockchain technology, and it's supposed to be for the purpose of cross-border transactions and stuff, like public service cross-border activity. In my mind, I'm just like, Coin's protocol already works, Ethereum stuff already works to the degree that it works at. You know, there's a number of protocols that are here right now that work. Are y'all gonna go and try to reinvent the wheel? Because somebody wants to get that contract money to go do redundant work. Not necessarily much to say about that other, because like I said, they're not actually full-fledged members. They're just an observer right now who have the intention and want to be full party members. We'll see how this plays out. All right, jumping into this next story. Senators join chorus of disapproval of backdoor regulation and seek staff accounting bulletin. When I initially read this, I was like, oh, okay, y'all are actually like disapproving of what the SEC is doing. And then what is this thing of staff accounting bulletin? So we're gonna have to do a little bit of reading on this one so everybody gets on the same page, because I had to read through it a couple of times. So 5 Republican senators, including crypto senator Cynthia Lummis. Yo, Cointelegraph, Coinbase, I hate when y'all be over here giving these public figure people in government these virtue signal titles that I don't know who comes up with this, but y'all need to stop doing that, because I still don't see her as a friend. But don't mind me and my disposition. You might see her as a friend of the space. We just not on the same page about it. Nonetheless, have sent a letter to SEC regarding its March bulletin, which established broad new requirements for trading platforms. Now, let's jump into the next one. United States Senator Bill Hagerty has sent a letter co-signed by 4 other Republican senators to Security and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler, urging the withdrawal of a staff accounting bulletin referred to as SAB 121, issued by the agency March 31st. Now, I need y'all to pay attention to this timeline too. That's the other thing. Pay attention to the timeline. This comes out in March, right? According to the senators, the bulletin amounts to regulation disguised as staff guidance and does not adhere to the Administrative Procedure Act, where they basically was like, hey, the way that y'all worded this thing, it sounds like y'all are putting out some level of guidance and regulation, but you're saying that this is just a staff commentary thing on how the staff is supposed to look at the space. Now, let me just jump down to it so y'all can get this part too. Yeah, there it is. The banking industry also reacted to the bulletin with alarm. The American Bankers Association and Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association sent a letter to the SEC on May 27 saying our member firms believe that there are a number of questions regarding the scope and application of SAB 121 and therefore believe deferral of the effective date is necessary to ensure that matters are appropriately addressed. Now, this could be that like those associations and stuff are playing like double sides of the sword, double sides of the aisle on the end of saying, well, publicly, we're going to say, hey, we are against it or questioning it. But on the back end, they could still be pushing in regards to funding the lobbyists who are arguing for the regulation to bring the crypto industry as it is right now more into a line with the traditional finance policy structure and setup. Jumping back up, the issue that I had with this is Gillibrand and Loomis came out with their proposed bill in relation to the blockchain crypto space where they put Bitcoin and cryptos together as the same digital asset thing. And they basically worded it where the different agencies are basically going to do the same thing that they're doing now. And they're proposing that they would have the same setup of what part of the space falls under their jurisdiction. So in my mind, their bill doesn't do anything new. This bill only comes out publicly, what was that, last month or the beginning of the month? Remember, the accounting bulletin came out in March. I don't know how long it takes to write one of these things, but it came out in the end of March. So what was that, March, April? So you have April, that whole month happens. Then you get into May. Towards the end of May, the Loomis Gillibrand thing comes out. I look at the timing of all of this, and I feel like there's optics being played on the public. Again, there's a lot of back-end conversations, whether you're talking on the regulatory side and whether you're talking on the business financing side, that us here on the retail side, we don't see, we're not privy to. And then by the time you see it presented out in front of you, the stuff has either been going on for days, weeks, or months already. And this situation right here, I don't think they are as, how do I say this? I don't think they are as objective to it as this article is making it sound. That's at least how I see it. Nonetheless, as far as this article goes, you can definitely do some deep digging on your own to see what are these other co-signers on the article, on the letter, because this is just a letter saying, hey, we don't think you should do blah, blah, blah. This ain't no bill. This has no commitments to it. Literally, you could put your name on this now and then be like, well, yeah, I signed it because that's what I thought at the time. And you could change your mind like 2 days later. Yeah, I thought that 2 days ago, but now, no, I'm not on that bandwagon no more. That's literally how this thing can go because it's just a letter. What does that mean? But I do get the point that they're making about the backdooring of like legislation or regulatory practice, because the traditional finance industry associations, they started to have questions. But again, like I said, they could also, not them, but the actual companies, the members, so like a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs, they could still be playing the public role of, oh my God, I can't believe this is what they're doing. But on the back end side, they could still be lobbying. You don't know. Nonetheless, folks, like things been happening. And like I said, looking at what's going on, I see this as a not your keys, not your cheese thing. I would argue part of also what's going on right now with how the platforms are going to start freezing or limiting withdrawals. They're getting people conditioned to have crypto exchanges and other things operate like traditional banking and being like, nah, let me get close. We can tell you when it's okay for you to have your money. You as the people, even though this is like a B2B thing, these businesses are still used by us at the retail level. So even if it's a B2B thing, they still have that mentality of, no, we're a business and we need to tell y'all when y'all are able to do X, Y, and Z, which that basically means it's not about permissionlessness. It's not about being inclusive as far as like everyone having access to it. This is the stuff that I'm seeing grow more and more in the space. The mentality is shifting. The businesses are moving back into that traditional Wall Street daddy mentality. Arguably, folks might have been like that from the beginning, arguably. Nonetheless, folks, yeah, it is what it is right now. And I just hope folks are taking the time to educate themselves to understand and see these things and move accordingly to what works for you. I'm like on the Gentleman of Crypto, we big about this whole do your own due diligence and understand like the risk that comes with messing around with these different platforms, these protocols, whether you're on an NFT side, whether you day trading or whatever. All of this thing comes with risk. There's a lot of platforms out here being marketed as DeFi, but they really CeFi. I'm gonna leave it on that one because I've been beating the horse too long on this video today. Nonetheless, I hope y'all have a good week. Just remember, this is Weekend Crypto. I am Trekk with 2Ks. This is the Gentleman of Crypto channel. And yeah, man, I hope y'all have a good week. All right, y'all. One.